to work. It's time for I was talking to one of the students, and I don't know if that student is still here, but he was saying to me that we talked about a lot of stuff. And I think it's time for us to take that stuff and really make it count. So there's two pieces of paper coming around to you. One is one that I need a copy of because it's absolutely hot off the press, so I don't even have it quite myself, other than scribbles on napkins between Linda and I. Thank you. So you will have a sheet of paper, and then you will also quickly have a cue card, a lined recipe card, or whatever you want to call it, that's coming to you. While those two things are being handed out, I'll just give a little bit of background and then I'll get us working. So I think just my closing comments, and not to take away Grace's thunder, who's going to sum up and give our final closing. People always cringe when you quote them, and I hope I'm not misquoting, but I think the line of the 2 days that really resonated with me is from Di Waddell, who said to me, listening to all of the various presentations of what we found from 366 people across the country, is there's not enough joy. And that just said it all to me. I just think there's not enough joy. And over the last 2 days, I have experienced a lot of joy. And I think it's this intellectual engagement, the high-level debate, and really, pulling the eyes out of things and really trying to figure what we're going to do together as a whole country. There are 106 people present. Some have had to leave now, but over the 2 days, there have been 106 people present from 31 Australian universities / national organizations. Really, and just so the level of, this is it to me. And this is what we heard over and over and over from the postgraduates, that they didn't feel that they were getting this type of intellectual exchange. And then just one political advertisement until I get into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to do in this activity. To reiterate what Sally said, my joy has been really tempered because I keep being asked by people over the last 2 days, are you going to move it? Is the conference next year going to be in another state to open it up to allow different people to come and different people to be involved in the conversation, particularly for the postgrads, because most of our postgrads are from Gold Coast and Brisbane, other than the panel who we were able to fund to be here. But so that other postgraduates in other states can contribute. And you know what? This is it, folks. This is a one-off. Because as Sally was saying, and as I think we all need to be really concerned about, with the imminent closing of the Australian Government Office for Learning and Teaching, that's given us a lot of joy, it's depressing. But let's stay positive for this exercise. We are now the change agents that Shelley Varnum has reminded us that we are. So I have 7 tasks for you, which we're not going to get done in the 15 minutes I have managed to squeeze out of the agenda. So I ask, we purposely put Linda and my email address at the top of this document. So if you could write down these words, because this is your homework to email back to us. So the first task, and I'm going to walk through these, Linda and I have been scribbling over the last 2 days because our Vice Chancellor told us to. When it might have been a throwaway line that the rest of you didn't pay attention to, but the Vice Chancellor and Linda and I felt one of his eyes on her and one of his eyes on me, that he said, I expect you not to be just listening over these 2 days. I expect action out of this. So it may not be a KPI for you, but it's now a KPI for Linda and I. So what I want is help from you. And truly, all playfulness aside, this is vital to me that we have real power here and we can do something. So what I ask you to do is to email Linda and I, each one of you, so I want 106 emails, to either and you can do all 7 of these things or one of them. I want you to add to this list. So we've given you 9. If you think we've missed something, this is from just 2 heads. If you think we've missed something, add. If you don't like something that we've written, delete. Tell us that number 3 is crap and that's not going to work. Rework. If you think that we got to the gist of something but we missed the point, tell us that. Prioritize. If you like these, tell us which ones matter in order. Which ones do you think are going to get, we're all time limited, as Jonathan was saying. Which ones should we prioritize? Create innovative solutions. As, again, to quote, it's been a Sally show here. There's at least 3 Sallys. So create, innovate solutions, solve. Create some more. Tell us how some of these, they're solutions, but they still need to be nutted out. So solve these problems. How are we going to do this? And most important, commit. If you think that you can contribute to one or more of these and you have an idea of how, let us know that you want in on that one and we'll keep this work going. So let me repeat those 7 tasks. Add, delete, rework, prioritize, create, solve, and commit. One more time. Add, delete, rework, prioritize, create, solve, and commit. So, and then I'm going to give you one more task because I may get cut off before I get to all 9. So I'll do your other task first. Before you leave the Hilton, before you leave the foyer of the Hilton, I ask you to do 2 things. We have 2 drop boxes. Sarah had one in her hand. Okay, there it is. So that drop box that's by Di up in there, just so you know what it looks like, it's going to sit outside next to the evaluation forms. Before you leave the Hilton, please, please, please drop in the evaluation form that's in the middle of your table into one of the boxes and your cue card into the other box. What you do with that cue card is 3 things. 1, articulate a 6-month achievable goal. So these are pretty high-level things that we're going to talk about on the page of 9. But this is something that you heard over the last 2 days that you're going to go back and achieve at your university in the next 6 months. So does somebody have one that just popped to mind immediately? Something they heard that they're going to do. Excellent. Thanks, Alyssa.
I want to encourage our staff to be open to involving HDR students in mentoring.
Okay, fantastic. So how are you going to encourage your staff to be open to involving the postgraduate students in mentoring? Something achievable, concrete. What are you going to do?
Conversation with the dean.
Okay, so Alyssa is going to have a conversation with the dean over the next 6 months to advocate to have that mentoring happen. Fantastic goal. So write one more. Excellent. So there you go. There's a 6-month goal for some of you, is to attend the STARS conference and to speak out there. What we'll do is we'll ask Madeleine to send everybody who registered for the conference a little ad for the STARS conference. So just delete if we're annoying you with mail, but we'll send it out so that those of you who would like it. So on the Dropbox cards, articulate something that you are going to commit to do in the next 6 months. Write your name and your email address. It's still anonymous. The only one who's going to see it is Madeleine, because what she's going to do is take each of those cards, so please write legibly because our wonderful Madeleine already does so much, so I don't want to strain her eyes. But what she's going to do is send that back to each of you, so you don't have to write it down twice to keep for yourself. Immediately after the conference, she's going to type that back just to you, not to the whole group, but she's going to email back to you what you said you were going to do in 6 months. When we get our new project manager in place, in 6 months, that new project manager is going to email you and ask for a report on what you did. So we want to make sure that this actually eventuates into real action and real response. So you understand your 2 pieces of homework. 1 is to respond to this paper. And get back to us, within a fortnight would be fantastic. And the other task is before you leave the Hilton to put that Dropbox card in the box that's out by the going to be about by the evaluation form with the 6-month achievable goal, your name, and your email address. Now I'm just going to walk through these 9 things until I get hooked off of the stage so that Grace can do the final closing. So number 1, create regular national forums for cross-university and cross-discipline postgraduate conversations. So I think that one's quite self-explanatory, and that really came out loud and clear from the student panel, that we really need some regular national forums that definitely include postgraduate students, and we need to make sure that we include teaching or coursework taught or coursework postgraduate students in that conversation. Number 2, create tools and dissemination vehicles for national data collection on the postgraduate student experience. Coursework and research considered separately and together so that we get that diversity and that we get the big picture. And so that might be the Aussie, as we were talking about. It might be a continuation of the type of conversations and interviews that we've had through our research project, etc. So we need to really flesh that out and say, what is it that we want to make sure that we get a better picture of the postgraduate students in Australia. Number 3, across the country, establish positions with responsibility and authority for coordination of postgraduate coursework programs at the school/faculty/university level as appropriate. This action requires support and training for those in those positions and must be valued and recognized through such means as protected time and recognition in workload promotion criteria. So this is in response, this was an action that was raised in response particularly to the student panel, where they asked to establish feedback/action channels for coursework students. So this is something we heard loud and clear in our research as well, is that students just didn't know who to go to. And there wasn't, and if you had a bad supervisor or a bad lecturer or what have you, where do you take that to? Where's the grievance lines? Who's going to coordinate that for you to make sure that you're okay and that things are going okay, as Harry said, but at a time where we can actually do something about it? Number 4 is to create and disseminate a national value postgraduates campaign. So we need to help CAPA. CAPA is engaging in a value postgraduates campaign. Boy, we can add a lot of value from the 106 people here and your extended networks. As part of that campaign, advance a shared definition on a national basis of postgraduate student experience. What do we mean? I had an interesting conversation with Grace during lunchtime, and she told me my definitions aren't definitions. No, I'm saying that playfully, Grace. And you're right, because I can't find any definitions. I've gone through article after article, and we don't have a shared understanding of what we mean by postgraduate student experience. Furthermore, establish clear and agreed indicators of postgraduate success. What do we mean by success? When is a postgraduate successful? When they have straight HDs? If they're, a coursework student? When they've completed their thesis? When they're a research student, etc.? Or what are the landmarks along the way? When they're employed? When they're employable? How do we know when they're employable? What do we mean by success? Number 5, implement supports and strategies at the university level that are customized to address postgraduate employability needs and engage a national campaign to heighten opportunities for graduates from postgraduate degrees. And we heard over and over from the postgraduates that they felt it was an assumption at their universities that they needed to do nothing for postgraduate employability because it would take care of itself. They said absolutely not true. There were only, across our whole research, 14% of people who actually articulated were optimistic about their graduate employment outcomes, about where they were going to be after they graduated. That depressed the beep out of me. And so we need to do something. We need to do something in our strategies and our process, but we also need to lobby to make sure that employers understand the value that postgraduate students add. Number 6, improve national policies and practices regarding universities as employers. And I've been really on a soapbox about this, because these are the comments that have kept me awake at night more than any other one. Some of the interviews got really depressing. Some had joy, and I was so uplifted. The ones that depress me the most, and I know that we need to make sure that we pay attention to the coursework students, etc., but the conversations that really depressed me were with the postgraduate students who really did want to be academics. And I know we also need to not assume that they all want to be academics, but we talked to a lot of people who actually did want to be academics, but realized that that wasn't going to work, so they re-articulated their goals into something else. They came in with the idea they wanted to be an academic, but when they heard about the casualization of the academic workforce and that they weren't going to get a continuing contract or even a contract over a semester long, they started to re-look. So we need to put more mechanisms into place to support PhD students in the transition from student to academic. Just plunking them into a research subject or into things, early career programs after they're hired isn't enough. Putting them into a Foundations of University Learning and Teaching program isn't enough. They need some coaching and some guidance and some advice. There is literature about that once you've taken your first sessional or adjunct appointment, you're doomed. You're always going to be relegated to that. I'm not trying to depress you, but is that the case? We need to know that, and we need to advise people whether they hold out or whether they're better to do a postdoc and wait for that other position. So we need to advocate for improved working conditions for early career academics as part of that, because they are our employees, and it's really been bothering me that we have this locus of control because they're in the same locus where they're studying and then being employed, and we're not very good employers from my perspective. So we need to advocate for improved working conditions, longer contracts, reduced workload, improved access to resources and services. They need offices and computers and all of the things that us full-time continuing academics have. Number 7, make postgraduate student experiences a priority within universities and nationally. Extend equitable and appropriate supports to postgraduate students as to undergraduate students. 8, create and support postgraduate students to achieve and sustain authentic governance positions nationally and locally. And furthermore, engage in an equity campaign so that ATSE students achieve governance positions that are not limited to ATSE portfolios. And number 9, foster greater senses of community within universities and on a national basis so that postgraduate students feel the joy. They have increased levels of social supports throughout their studies and into their graduate experiences. So I will get off the stage so that Grace can close the symposium, but please do your homework. Fill out those task cards and those goal cards and put them in the Dropbox, and take this with you and have a really good think about those 7 tasks that I asked you to do.